Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm joined by JP Mason, where we'll be talking to Paul Quinn. Paul Quinn, welcome to Barras Art and Design. We're in the heart of the Barrowlands.
Yeah, we are.
What's your best memory of playing the venue?
Well, I've played it quite a few times actually. I played it with the Soup Dragons, and I played it with Teenage Fanclub as well. So I suppose, in fact, I think the first time that I ever played in Barrowlands with the Soup Dragons, I met Dave McGeechan.
Aye.
I think that was the first time that I ever met
He would have been promoting. He still promotes them now.
Dave, I'm pretty sure that Dave was a runner.
What, really?
At that time, I think so. Yeah. So that always sort of brings back that memory. That's where I first met Dave, and obviously, you know, the Soup Dragons thing was it was kind of steadily climbing at that point. But probably my favourite memory of playing Barrowlands was with Teenage Fanclub. Obviously, the first time that we played it and stuff like that. Always remember when we were actually getting into the venue, and I had been in the Celtic View. It was me and Simon Donley, who I know Simon really well, and we'd just been sort of chatting and stuff like that, and we'd done an interview in the Celtic View, and I can remember walking into the Barrowlands, and you know, the place was beginning to fill up by this time, and I walked in with my wife and whatever, and I remember this guy saying to me, you know, "Oh, what are you saying about the Hearts now, mate?" So I must have said something about Hearts. I can't quite remember what I said, but you know, I think I told the guy just to sit down, you know. So that I can always remember that memory of playing Barrowlands with Teenage Fanclub. But probably my favourite memory is when we did the Creation. We did the Creation shows in 2018. Obviously, I left the band in 2000 or something like that, and it was Sony were reissuing the records that had been released through Creation that were released through Sony. So there was like 3 nights, you know, where they played, you know, and I played in 2 of those nights, which was Grand Prix, Songs for Northern Britain, which was the second night, which was the records that I'd played on, and then the third night was Howdy and like a collection of B-sides, so it was like sort of a lot of moving parts in the third night, you know. But that's probably my favourite memory of playing Barrowlands. It's probably because it's my most recent memory.
Aye.
But it's that was really great, you know. It was good to be back. I always said when you know I would never. I'm not sort of one for going back to things, you know. You know, I would never. You know, if the fan club had to split up, and it was like, oh, we're going to reform to do these shows, I wouldn't have done it, you know. But it was the fact that the fan club hadn't split up,
still going,
you know, that I was like, you know, well, there's still a going. Yeah, the fan club have just always sort of moved on, you know. So that was really good to sort of do that, especially when I hadn't played with the guys for like 18 years or something like that.
You know, click back into it, Paul?
I don't know. It was that was interesting actually, because at that time I was working at Gorbal Sound Studios, and I'd been managing that studio, and so I had that facility that where I could go. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a bit rusty here, you know. And I actually went and rehearsed, you know, for about a month prior to the rehearsal starting. You know, I was just like sort of in playing drums on my own, and I was done in. You know, I was like, my God. But when I started when the rehearsal started, when there was other people in the room, it just clicked into place, you know. Actually, you know, I probably knew the songs better than the guys in the band, you know, and I found it really easy, you know, because, you know, I've never really been you know, what I would always sort of a kind of drummer, you know, where I would sit and practice paradiddles and all that, stuff, you know, that I just play to the song, you know. That's where my sort of creative sinus is just sort of being able to do that rather than sitting playing drums are, you know, drums on their own are just nonsense, you know. You know, I much prefer to play the song.
And you know, I think that comes into the chemistry of being in a room with other people, obviously being involved in that song, Paul. But what's the chemistry like in the Barrowlands? Because I got an opportunity a couple of years ago, JP, you were there, to be in the Barrowlands before it opened, right? So there was maybe a band doing a sound check and all that stuff. It was the Twilight Sad gigs. And it's a venue I had been attending, Paul, for years, you know, constantly with my brother, seeing all our favourite bands at the Barrowlands. And then you walked in and it was in the daylight and all the lights were on. You're thinking, wow, it is just a building, but there's something special about it. What is that? Because Celtic Park's the same. It's a breeze block building, but when you walk in, it's special, isn't it? Yeah,
I suppose, you know, and it's never to take away from the fact that, you know, you should always, you know, when you're been able to do, when you're been able to play Barrowlands and stuff like that, you know, never, you know, when I was younger, it was, you know, my whole goal was just to make records. I wasn't interested in, you know, I never thought out with that. I just wanted to make records. But obviously when you find yourself in that position, and in the time and in the moment, a lot of those things go over your head, you know, because you're just there and you're doing what you're doing, and you sometimes forget kind of where you are and how you've got there and stuff like that, you know. But certainly, you know, when you walk into, you know, places like Barrowlands and stuff like that, particularly, you know, as I just said, when I done those shows in 2018, and I'd been away from it for a wee while, you can appreciate it more, you know. You're like, wow, this is, you know. And in fact, that was the first and only time that I'd actually taken one of the stars. You know, I took a star off the wall, you know, which I've got in my house, you know, so...
Same here.
How often do they place these stars?
Well, they've got their own machine that makes them.
Machine that
really
makes them. Yeah. You know, so...
Do they sell them? Do they sell them?
Nah, it's just the price.
I think they're there to take, really, you know.
It's become that way, isn't it?
It's become that way, you know, so... But no, I mean, it was great. It's an amazing venue, you know. You need to, you know... I mean, it's famous worldwide, you know, as being like a really iconic venue, you know. It's like even in, you know, in the States and stuff like that, some places in like Detroit, Chicago are very similar, you know, to that type of building. You know, so those sort of, all those memories are locked in those walls, you know. So
but do you remember the beginning of the Barrowland though? Because I obviously I looked into it and found out that Simple Minds used it as the video shoot for Waterfront, and then someone went, wait a minute, why is this not getting used as a gig venue?
Yeah, well, I think it did, and then I don't know what, I think it was used as, well,
an actual ballroom.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was actually built by the women that owned the barras. And that was, and it was built as a sort of community hub, if you like, for the stall traders, for the traders on the market. You know, where they could come and sort of, you know, let their hair down and stuff like that. And I think it's a pretty rare building in the fact that it's a sprung floor and stuff like that, you know. And I don't think they can do any. I don't think it's. You know, the dressing rooms, they can't do the dressing rooms and all that up, you know.
I'm glad they can't. I'm glad it stays the same, because it's like...
There's no glitz or glamour about Barrowlands, you know.
But people still come back, you know. Look at LCD Sound System, did 3 nights, and they had the choice of any venue they wanted, but they chose that.
Yeah, you know, because a lot of newer venues, you know, are fairly generic and they're fairly cold and they're soulless, you know. You walk into the bars, it's like, you know, you could be anywhere in the world. When you walk into that building, that room, that hall, you literally could be in any city in the world, you know, that has got that, you know, genuine old-time concert hall, you know, and it's just soaked in that atmosphere, you know. It's.
Can you remember the first gig you went there to?
I can remember the first gig that I went to. I seen the Specials in the Modettes.
Wow.
And then, you know, that was it.
I can only imagine what a Specials gig back then in the Barras.
Well, it was I think I've seen the Specials a couple of times here at the Barlands, Madness and all those early two-tone gigs.
Which in that room, the atmosphere, I mean, it's not as if people are standing with their arms folded at that point. Everyone's going to go mental for that sort of stuff.
In fact, I tell a lie, the Specials gig wasn't, it was at the Apollo.
Oh, right.
That was my first gig though, was at Glasgow Apollo. I actually seen a guy falling off the side of the building, try to climb up the pipe to get in the toilet window.
Wow.
You used to see that quite often at the Apollo, you know, not to bring things down.
I'd love to have gone to that.
But it was like that.
I read Billy Sloan's book recently and his chat about,
the Apollo was incredible. The Apollo was incredible, man. The whole building used to bounce. You know, if you were on that balcony, you were like, this is coming down. You know, but it never did, you know. It's very much like Celtic Park. You know, when you see Celtic Park, you can actually see it moving.
I know. We spoke about that the other week.
Yeah.
See, there's the thing, Paul, you've just sparked this in my mind here, right, in relation to JP and I generally are on a Celtic State of Mind every Thursday, and we meander into the music chat now and again, JP. We can't help it, right?
Yeah, of course.
And as soon as we do it, people are in the comments saying, get back to the Celtic chat.
Sure.
But see, going to a gig, I think there's so many elements of that are similar to go to the football, right? You know, see when I'm walking down the street and I see the Barlands lights lit up, and the buzz that you get, and then you go into the Beards as it was back in the time, and you'd have a few berries and you go in, and then you walk up the steps and then the doors open and then it's the theatre. Yeah. That's similar to going to football.
Absolutely.
You know, going down London Road and seeing the Celtic Park.
It's a pilgrimage, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the community aspect of it, JP, and the places are drenched with history.
Absolutely.
Paul Weller used to say it was from the floorboards up, you could almost feel the history of a venue.
Yeah.
So I think football, music, they're like that, aren't they? Intertwined.
And you know, they're just linked, but it's just that soaked and working class. You know, if you think of, you know, it's a get out. It's a get out. You know, it's something that you can do yourself. You know, you can, you know. You know, it's like any sport, you know, or whatever, you know, there has to be some element of talent, there has to be some element of luck, you know, but there has to be a fire, you know, that you know, you have to have that fire, that's what you want to do, you know, and people go about it in different ways, but I've always seen that link with football and music is just. It's just there because you know it's like you look at the whole Oasis thing. You know the whole Oasis thing. That band just, you know, it was just the right time, the right place. The country was in that mindset, and I suppose Noel and Liam like sort of gave like working class kids you know, because they're looking on the stage and they're seeing 5 working class kids. And they're like, well, I can do that, surely, you know, and that's the inspiration. You know, it's the same as football.
They then play their biggest gigs at the stadium of the club that they love. You know, the Man City that was the Man City at the time.
You know, unfashionable Man City.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, you know, to be honest, you know, like I always found the bigger venues sort of a bit more soulless than, you know, like you're talking about places like Barlands and stuff. At least you can see, you know, you can see the whites of people's eyes, you know, and you can see what it means to people, you know. And the thing that I always found with the Barlands as well is it's quite a small stage.
Yeah.
It's not. People think it's this. It looks like this enormous stage. It's actually quite. It's actually quite narrow in depth. So from a drumming perspective, you know, where I played in gigs where the band's been on the stage, and this is true. This was in the States somewhere. The band was on the stage, and I was in this hole in the wall. I kid you not. You went in a different room and everything was lit upstairs, and I was above the band. The band were here, and I was like completely like in a square in the wall, which is just bizarre. But to get back to the Barlands, you know, you can see the whites of people's eyes. They're the gigs that are they're the hardest gigs. You know, because you can see the reaction.
I think when you go to bigger arenas and stadiums as well, you've got a varying level of interest in that band. You'll have your absolute hardcore maniacs that have never missed a gig, that are within the first 20-30%, and then you get back to the middle, it's people are like, oh yeah, I kind of like a couple of songs, and then the people at the back are like just maybe like one song. Whereas if you're at the Barrowland, everybody in that room is completely on board with everything that you're doing, and then you get that feeling as soon as you are with a band.
Yeah, because it's not a huge capacity venue either. You know, what is it, 2,000 or something?
1,900,
1,900, So it's good enough to, but it's not. You know, it's as you said, it's the room. It's just, you know, they're definitely. It's a really, really great venue to play. You know. And it just goes by in a flash.
Yeah, I bet. See, when you're an aspiring musician, you just wanted to put out records. Is the Barrowlands on some kind of bucket list, Paul? Do you think for any Scottish band coming through, that needs to be played? We need to play the Barras.
I think you know, the music's so drastically changed in its landscape since, obviously, you know, when I was playing with the Soot Dragons, when I was playing with Teenage Fanclub, even. So there's varying degrees of like what venues are in the remit to they're the goal venues. You know, I suppose places like King Tut's, you know, is an iconic venue in Scotland and Britain. You know, probably in the same way, like in the sort of, you know, the early 70s and stuff like that, the CBGB's was in New York. You know. Where that's where you aspire to play, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, there's more venues now as well. You know, there's more pubs or whatever that are smaller venues that put shows on and stuff like that. You know, when, you know, it was places like, you know, there wasn't you would get to smaller venues, you know. You would call it night moves and stuff like that, you know, and you would go and, God bless Tam Coyle.
Night moves, I've heard of that.
Yeah, Tam, I mean, you know, it's like, you know, I was actually speaking to a friend of mine last night, and it's Willie Knox and Tam Coyle. I mean, what those two guys did for music in Glasgow and Scotland was phenomenal. You know, they were putting on, you know, the birthday party, you know, you know, they were putting on Nick Cave and Night Moves, you know, they were putting on Happy Mondays.
And Night Moves. You supported them, Paul?
We supported them.
Early doors?
Yeah, very early doors, just with a local band that I played with. But, you know, those guys are so instrumental in you know, you know, people talk about the Splash One thing.
Heard of that. So that's the whole Bobby Gillespie thing,
and the whole postcard thing and all that, you know, and not forgetting the postcard only put out like 8 records, and like Splash One only lasted a very, very
was that down near like George Square?
Yeah. So, and that only lasted a very, very short time, you know. And they were like, "Oh, it's amazing, guys dance with each other and all that." You know, they were doing that in Night Moves.
Yeah.
You know, like what Tam and Willie had sort of introduced. You know, so you know, I think I don't think those two guys should be sort of. You know, I think they done a lot for.
I'm well aware that Tam Coyle was right at the heart of Tuts, right at the start of it.
I mean, Tam's such a huge figure in music in Scotland, you know, for decades.
Yeah.
You know, and I sometimes feel like Tam gets overlooked, you know.
Well, he wasn't overlooked on the main stage at Transmit, was he?
No. Well,
for Shirley Manson, there was Tam Coyle. Like, he just was going to change the track or whatever.
I mean, he's what a guy, you know.
Yeah.
What a guy. Done loads for like young bands.
Yeah. Oh no, I know that.
Like that
South by Southwest. He's I've seen him out at South By in his kilt and everything, and he does genuinely...
He's a very proud Scotsman.
Yeah, he does genuinely know a lot of people in Texas and Austin for young bands that go over there. I mean, South By's changed, as you just said.
Sure.
South By's changed from what it was. It's maybe not as focused on new and upcoming bands as it once was, and now it's more about...
It's very corporate.
Big bands going to play like a new album launch show there, like Metallica, Lady Gaga and all that. I mean, that wasn't what South By was supposed to be.
No. I mean, I remember being in Columbia. Is it Columbia? It was Columbia Records in the States. And we get introduced to this guy called Kid Leo, who's a really famous DJ. And he was like, you guys should play South by Southwest, you know? And we were kind of like,
what's that?
What's that, mate? You know? This is a guy that's sitting with, like, you know, a Babe Ruth baseball bat on the wall behind him, signed Babe Ruth, you know, and a picture of the Pope. And, you know, in a $6,000 suit, you know, and just looked like John Gotti. It just looked amazing, you know. It was just like, you look amazing, mate. But, you know, if you look up Kid Leo, you know, he's a really, really famous DJ. And still going strong, as I believe, just now, you know. And we were like, what's South by Southwest? And funnily enough, I had a photograph. I found this photograph. And it was me, it was when I was with the Soup Dragons, and it was me and the guy who played percussion with us, a guy called Steve Sedelnik. And Steve went on to drum with Madonna, and, you know, I think the last thing he'd done was Richard Ashcroft.
Oh, wow.
But Steve's a big supporter of the whole Ukrainian, you know, I think he gave up a lot of music to actually go out and drive with the convoys, and, you know, he's an amazing guy. Steve Sedelnik, amazing guy. And I found this photograph, and it's me and Steve, and I'm like, what is that? You know, I'm like, that's a festival, that's an outdoor festival. And I said, there was a police car in the background.
I said Austin.
I zoomed in, and it's Austin, so it's South by Southwest, you know.
How do we do with the festivals? Is it a step up from other? Because you've played all over the world, festival circuit. How do the Scots do the festivals? Are we as good doing them as we intimate gigs?
I think so. I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, the last time that I sort of toured properly toured was 1997. You know, so things have came a long way since then, you know, but certainly, you know, obviously, just the Scottish temperament is like, I don't think has ever changed. You know, there's sort of, you know, particularly Glasgow. You know, it's a very West Coast thing. You know, if you sort of take that line right down the country. You know, you've got that whole, you know, you've got Manchester, Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Right down to, you know, right down to Bristol. You know, it's that whole.
That's interesting.
It's that whole West Coast thing.
I think if you're a band and you've got the stuff, if you've got the stuff and the stuff's there, and you come to Glasgow and you're on form, you'll have a better gig in Glasgow than you'll have anywhere.
Yeah,
because
a lot of what certainly you'll be able to tell me. More about nowadays, but certainly a lot of bands, a lot of tours used to start in Glasgow because it would be like, okay, we'll just throw ourselves right in at the deep end. It wasn't, you know, it's all right to be in Glasgow, you know, and we'll warm up as we go along.
Yeah,
you know, it was like you knew
set the bar at the start.
You were there to set the bar, you know, because if it wasn't happening, you know, I think the Scottish crowds are certainly a crowd that'll, you know, they want their money's worth.
They'll let you know, Paul.
Yeah, they want their money's worth, you know. So, but I think festivals just, you know, they're different. You know, festivals in France are different from, you know, and it's just culturally, they're different. You know, French are more reserved, or, you know, Spain are more boisterous. You know. I mean, I played gigs in Spain where, and I'm playing in the band, and I can hear the crowd's vocals louder than the band, you know. So, you know, it's just varying, you know. Everywhere's got its own special ingredient, I suppose, you know.
Do you think when we talk about Tea in the Park, and that was a festival I got into really early, like my brother's one of the guys that went to every one of them.
Yeah.
Do we miss it? Does the circuit miss it, JP? You've probably got a good view on this as well.
Definitely, because it would. But then, like you said earlier, music's changed so much that it's become too fragmented. So like trying to keep everybody happy that's into all different types of music is so hard now, because it's just split off with streaming and everything else. It's just so hard. So like Tea in the Park, I don't know if Tea in the Park could survive in this climate, because you just there's thousands of people that are into that type of music, thousands of people are into that type of music, and trying to bring them all together was what the festival was struggling with in the latter years. The move was whatever it was, you know, going from Balado to Strathallan. It was more about what was actually happening.
Strathclyde Park.
Yeah, and Strathclyde Park.
I played the first one.
Oh,
the first
man.
one and the last one.
Yeah.
And then played the first one.
Right, how many bands were on the first bill and the last bill though?
Well, they had been there both times.
Who were on the first bill and the final bill?
Hardly any, and I don't
And you played both?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, that like 94 was Tea in the Park, right? That was the first.
That was the first one. Yeah.
So was that your first year?
That was my first British show with Teenage Fanclub.
What a way to start.
That was my very first. When I joined the fan club, they had just they were kind of in the very early throes of writing Grand Prix, and I joined the band, and we'd been rehearsing. We'd been working in the tracks for Grand Prix, and then, you know, and I knew this was, there's obviously, you know, okay, I was in the band and I was rehearsing with them and stuff like that, you know, but there's been in a rehearsal room, and then there's playing live with people, and then there's going in and actually being in people's company 24 hours a day for a long period of time. So they had arranged a couple of shows. There was a show in Sweden, a festival in Sweden, and I can remember Baccarat played it.
Burt Baccarat?
No, Baccarat.
Oh, Baccarat, Yes Sir, I Could Boogie?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Seriously, they played it. Because I can remember standing speaking to Jerry. Me and Jerry were standing, and we were just like, what are we doing here? Anyway, you know, and it was great, you know, it was good. And then we played a show in Belgium. And then the first British show was Tea in the Park. That was the first show. So those were my if you like, that was the. Can this guy cut it?
Wait, and
you know,
that's going back to my memory. That's what, 3 months after Kurt Cobain passed away.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was in King Tut's the night Kurt passed away.
Really?
Norman.
And but did you ever have any?
I never met Kurt.
No, I was going to say, because you wouldn't be in.
I never met Kurt. No, but the fan club had toured with Nirvana. Before, but when Brendan was still in the band. So they knew him. They knew him really well.
To the point that it would have been devastating to them. I can remember Norman phoning me. Was it that night? Was it King Tut's? I'm sure it was King Tut's. I'm sure it was me and Norman had went to see somebody at King Tut's that night. And if my memory serves me right, because you're doing. I could tell you the night.
You're doing all that
was
stuff,
April
right?
April 5th, 1994.
Well, I'm sure it was the Breeders that was playing.
All right.
Oh, wow.
That's
King
mad.
Tut's,
yeah.
That night, I'm pretty sure it was. And if it wasn't the Breeders at King Tut's, it was the Breeders at
Mayfair or something.
No, it was on the road, the same road as the O2 Academy.
Oh, the Plaza.
The Plaza.
Right. Yeah.
So it was either one of those two gigs that happened that night. Because I went in with Norman, because that's when. What year did you say that was?
94, April 5th, 1994.
Well, I had left the Soup Dragons. The Soup Dragons had split by then, and I was sort of hanging out with Norman quite a lot. You know, Norman was writing and stuff like that, and I was sort of is Norman, you know, oh, I've got these tunes, do you want to come down and you know, I think I had a drum machine and I could program this drum machine, you know. He was like, oh, do you want to come down and program these songs for me, blah, blah, blah. So I was sort of hanging out quite a lot with Norman, even though I've known Norman since we were like kids.
All right, wow.
Like, you know, like kids, kids like 12, you know. I remember that night.
That's what I love about the Teenage Fanclub, though. Your story goes way back with these guys to the point where you were in a pre-Fanclub band.
Yeah, I was in the Boy Hairdressers.
Yeah.
I'd done two shows with Boy Hairdressers, which was, you know, and I don't know why, I always think this, and I could be completely wrong, but I remember because I was playing with a kind of local band. It was friends of mine and stuff like that.
Was that the Jesus Monroe band?
Yeah, and I think they had another name even before that, you know. But anyway, I was playing with those guys, and again, just going back to what we were talking about earlier with the community music thing that I had sort of put together in Belsall Community Centre, which was great. It was a wee studio, and you know. I remember Norman saying to me, "Oh, we've got these gigs, but we've not got a drummer." No, I don't know what happened, because I know that Francis was playing with them. He certainly done the record that they done. They recorded, and they'd asked me to do it. So I can remember rehearsing in Belsall Community Centre. It was me, Norman, and Raymond, and I always thought there was three as in the band. Mm-hmm. Or not, you know, not in the band, you know, because I was just like, right, okay, I'm just helping these guys out. But I only thought there was three in the band. Mm-hmm. And we went in and we rehearsed in the original Berkeley Street rehearsal rooms, which were on Berkeley Street.
That's why it's called Berkeley 2?
That's why it's called Berkeley 2, because
I've never known that.
Because the original one was in Berkeley Street.
Right.
It was in a basement, right, and it was a tiny wee room. And I turned up in Joe McLinden, Superstar,
I met him.
and Jim Lambie, who went on to, I mean, Jim's a world famous artist.
Mm-hmm. There was magic in that band, Paul.
You know,
look what everybody went on to do.
Yeah, and I was like, who are these guys? I hadn't even met them, you know. But Jim played keyboards, and Joe obviously played bass. And we went and played, and the first gig that we played was the Volcano at the bottom of Byers Road, which is where Trainspotting was filmed.
That's incredible.
I just got full shivers.
So
that was at the bottom of
Byers Road, yeah, just across in Byers Road, and we played there, and then we played in Fury Murray's. I think we played like Volcano and maybe say the Friday night or the Thursday night, and then we played Fury Murray's in like the Sunday or something like that. And I can remember, and this was a sort of great kind of, this was a kind of great reading just how the guys in the fan club were and all that. And I always remember this. I was speaking to Norman and Raymond after that Fury Murray show, and I can remember Raymond, who's you know, Raymond's very straight, very direct, very straight to the point, but in a very, very measured way, and a pretty cool big guy, Raymond. And he was like, you know, just so what you up to, you know, what you doing, kind of thing, you know. And me being really, really stupid, never clicked, never took the bait. And I was like, well, I'm just sort of doing this thing with this band, and you know, and I can remember him just being like, all right, okay, because and obviously be working with him later on, you know, I kind of knew that was the kind of guy that Raymond was, you know. Raymond he would never ever be like, oh no, this is, you know, come on, just do this, you know. It's like that's just knowing Raymond's
he wanted you to volunteer.
No, he was like, so what you doing? But what he was really meaning is, well, what you doing? Mm-hmm. What you doing, you know? Are you into this? Are you into this? Whereas I took it literally, and it was like, so what you doing? Oh, well, I'm just sort of... Mm-hmm. So he's obviously, you know, around my mind, anyway, he's just taking it as, oh, I'm just doing, you know. Or I think I would have been in Teenage Fanclub for the off.
For day one.
Yeah.
The thing is, Paul, as I say, there's magic in that band.
But you know, I wouldn't have been in the Soup Dragons.
Yeah.
And the Soup Dragons came that kind of same avenue, because the Soup Dragons came from a nod from Norman to Sean.
Right.
You know, where Sean had 2 drummers in mind. And I think it was Norman. It was like, nah, I'd go with Paul.
Go with Paul. See, I think, Paul, right? You go into a band like Soup Dragons. What's the first record you worked on?
Well, I had spoke to Sean a couple of times about the Soup Dragons, and again learned a wee bit more about Sean's character, like after this, and kind of made sense and all that. And I really didn't like This Is Our Art, the Soup Dragons' first record, right? It wasn't for me. And I says that to Sean, and I was like, nah, it's not for me, you know.
That's a hard thing to say to somebody.
No, wasn't it?
Did you not think?
No.
It's like what we were talking before, Paul. You know, be truthful and honest.
Yeah,
and
I'm just like, you know. And I was like, nah, it's not really for me, you know. But then sort of getting to know Sean's character and stuff like that. Sean's one of those kind of guys, you know, if you're like, no, you can't get that, he's like, but I want it even more now. Which is great, you know, that's just his character. So he came back, I think he phoned me or something like that, and he was like, you know, you want to... So I ended up meeting Jim and Cecile and Sean over in Jim McCulloch's house, and they played me Love God. Love God was recorded, you know, Love God was a rock record. And I was like, yeah, okay then. And that was in maybe the Saturday afternoon. And they gave me a tape, you know, and they were like, there you go, there a tape of the record. And I remember I can remember listening to that record just constantly over, you know, because we just like, we'll give you a phone and we'll get something together. So anyway, the phone call was the Monday night. And it was like, we're rehearsing tomorrow, which was the Tuesday. And I was like, yeah, okay then, you know. And I can remember going in, and I don't think it was like, I don't think I ever thought this, you know, but I think that I'd sort of committed myself to it now, you know. In myself, I was like, you know, there was no question that I was getting this gig. There was absolutely no question of me not getting the gig. And I can remember him saying, so the first song on that record, if my memory serves me right, is Backwards Dog. And I can remember them saying, so what songs do you want to play? And I was just like, just for the top of the album.
And because you'd listened to it so much,
I just played the whole album.
You just do it.
I played the whole album. And I didn't have a drum kit, and I didn't have a drum kit. I didn't have a drum kit in my house. So what I used to do was, and I always done this, was I've always had the same setup since I can remember playing drums. So I knew where everything was. And I used to sit with a set of headphones, and if somebody walked into a room, they'd be like, what is that guy doing? He's playing an invisible set of drums. And that's how I rehearsed. So I used to just sit, listen to the songs, and just play the drums and just play the parts and just play like that, and just that was how I learned songs. And I can remember going in, and it was like, oh, what do you want to do? And we played the full album, and they were like, what the you know, because you know, not that it was, you know, not that they would have been blown away with my drumming, you know, but I think the fact just that I knew the songs, that I'd went and I'd done my homework, and that is
you could only know those songs if you'd listened to them.
Well, I think that's a really important. I think that's a thing that's really important. I always say this to like sort of bands that, you know, that I speak to, or you know, whatever people that I speak to. You know, it's you really need to do your homework. You know, it's like, you know, you really need to do your homework.
You were prepared.
I was prepared, even although I had never been in that situation before. You know, I'd done the shows with like Norman and Raymond and stuff like that, and I'd learned those songs, and but never to that level where I was going in and basically auditioning for a job with a band that was, at that time, you know, was the indie charts were really prevalent at that time.
Oh, and ITV chart show.
Yeah, and, you know, and the Soup Dragons were just hitting number ones all the time in that, you know, so in the landscape they were quite a big act, you know. They were a name band, and I can remember, you know, again home and stuff like that, and then they turned up at the door and all that, and they offered me the gig and blah blah blah, and I still wasn't quite sure if I wanted to do it. And I'll always, it was my wife, it was Liz that said to me, because I was like, I really don't know if I want to do this, and it was Liz that was like, well, just go and do it, just because they were going on tour and stuff like that. And she was like, just go and do it, and if you don't like it after the tour, then at least you've went and you've tried it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then you can say, well, it wasn't really for me, I didn't enjoy it, or whatever.
Yeah, you weren't committing to 10 years.
I wasn't committing to 10 years. And that's exactly what I did, I went and we did a tour, and it was after coming back for that tour, the guys appeared at my door on a Saturday afternoon, and they were like, no, I was like, they were like, oh, we want you to join the band, kind of thing, and I was like, right, okay then. But that time I was like, this is good, because I've never done that kind of touring before, where you had a tour manager and you had a drum tech, and you were staying in hotels, and you were travelling in a car, in an upright position, the gigs that I had done, you were lying in the back of a van, getting through a bit of popcorn. Do you know what I mean? So
did you not get paid once in a gig in Brighton with a bag of chips?
That was with the local band that I played with. Yeah, we done a tour. I organised that tour, my Christ. And we actually played, I remember the name of the place, it was called the Old Ship in Brighton, and we got a bag of chips each.
I bet you enjoyed them as well.
They were amazing. They were very, very good.
Sometimes a bag of chips could be a good reward.
Yeah, a bag of chips
exactly.
So, no, it was, and again, a lot of, musicians nowadays don't really, they would just never ever think of doing anything like that. It's just like, right, okay, let's just jump in the back of a transit van. It's like they're like, oh, where's the splitter? Where's the splitter? It's like no, that's. That's what you want. That's the goals.
You wanted to make a record or a demo, let's say, and the guys in the band would be selling stuff to bring the cash together.
Yeah,
you do whatever you needed to do.
Teenage Fanclub's first record, they made that record, I think it was a neighbour of Raymond's had passed away.
Right.
When Raymond was staying in the flat, and it was like, obviously, the sort of next door neighbour or something like that, and I think that, they brought her washing in, and they were sort of, quite neighbourly, and she left Raymond all the white goods in her house, like her fridge and her cooker and blah blah, God love her, and Raymond sold those to make that first record.
Wow.
It was like that went towards it. There was no funding, there was no like sort
Pay of Scotland or anything.
No, there was none of that, man. It was like, you wanted to make a record, do it yourself.
Go and do it.
Just go and do it. It's like, I remember when the government introduced the thing for musicians. Where you get like an extra 10.
Yeah.
Can you remember that?
And it was during the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was like, oh, we'll give you an extra tenner or whatever, a week or whatever, I can't remember what the project was called or whatever, But I can remember Raymond doing an interview with Channel 4 regards it. Somebody had asked for a soundbite or whatever, And I was like, Raymond was like, yeah, I'll do it, And he did it, and he was like, I think one of these for plumbers and joiners and guys that bake cakes and all that. He's like, what's so special about musicians?
Yep.
Why does people, why are they? They're no different. They're just people. They just do this. They don't deserve any special treatment. It's like, just go and do it. Back yourself up. Instead of looking for handouts.
Yeah.
It's that's a false economy. That is a completely false. I strongly believe in that. It's like, put your money where your mouth is. See, if you're not prepared to put the money into what you're doing yourself, why should anybody else? I've done that with the first Primary 5 records. I was like, that was never even intended to be an album. And it went from 4 songs into a full album. And I was like, right, what, you know, and people were saying, oh, we want to hear this and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, I'm no, you know, and I almost felt guilty at putting that record out, because I was like, wait a second, you know, stand back and look at this picture. He was a guy that was the drummer in Teenage Fanclub, who's left Teenage Fanclub, who's now writing his own songs, and by complete default, singing his own songs, and he's the guy at the front of the band. That just to me looks right away, you know what I mean? That's just a red flag there of a huge ego. But that wasn't the case. The plan was for me not even to be in the band. I was wanting to write the songs and put a band together and get them to go and do the songs. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that, you know, that didn't happen, you know, and Ryan, who was the guy that I wrote with in Primary 5, that was like, we need to get these done, why don't you just sing them? And it went from there. You know, so, and there was labels that, you know, that wanted to put that record out. And I was like, nah, I can't, you know, I can't be that vain. I would rather just put it out myself, and hence where Bellbeat came from.
Right.
That was a label. Mm-hmm. It was Bellbeat Music, mm-hmm. And I just set up this thing and put and paid for the record and made the record, and we actually mixed it at Paul McGuigan's house in London, the Gwigsy.
Wow.
With Nick Bryan, who had also worked on previous Oasis records and Stone Roses, Second Coming, worked on Second Coming, and I knew Nick's still a good friend, and I just put the record out myself, and then what I decided to do was, well, I've made the record, I put it out myself, I'll license it. People want to put it out, although I'll license it, and so I just licensed it to sort of small labels in like Australia, Japan, Korea, you know, Europe, the States, Canada, and it sold about 10,000 copies. You know, which if we sold 10,000 copies of a record nowadays, it'd be like that's a good one, yeah. You know. But it's just like I just went out and done it myself, you know.
We'll start with I'm Free, because I'm Free changed everything for Soup Dragons as well, didn't it? Really, I mean, that was the big crossover. And the album, changed the album, because you said it was a rock album.
Yeah, it changed the album.
When I was a wee guy, I was obsessed with that song. Like, I was 10 or 11 years old and I was listening to it, like you said, you listened to the album over and over. I listened to that over and over, yeah. And I guess it's only in recent years that I've found out that it wasn't actually your song and it was a Rolling Stones.
It's a Rolling Stones song, yeah.
But it's quite such a random, like, I've never even heard the original. I don't know what the original sounds like. So
I think they only ever played it live once, and that was at Hyde Park.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I know that they didn't like it.
They did?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't like it. They didn't like the song. I think it was Charlie that didn't like it.
Really?
I think Charlie Watts was like, nah, it's pretty rubbish.
But what of all the songs that you could have chosen to cover?
I mean, that, believe it or not, that's the first song that I recorded.
Right.
With the Soup Dragons.
Right.
And we were rehearsing at Berkeley too. And I can remember Sean coming in and saying, there's this Rolling Stones song, I'm Free, does any of you know it? And Jim being Jim was like, yeah, I know that. And Jim started playing that riff.
Uh-huh.
And within days, we were in, I believe that record was made at Livingston Studios in London, right. And that was within days of that rehearsal.
Right.
I'm talking 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. We were in a studio recording that song.
Because it's got like a huge production. It's not got like a choir in it and all that.
It was George Schilling that produced it. It's no the original.
No, the Soup Dragons.
Oh, the Soup Dragons thing. Yeah, I mean, I think Sean's Sean would have been an amazing producer, I mean, I don't speak to Sean, I don't think that's a secret by anybody. But I think he's a really talented guy, whatever the sort of personal thing is between Sean and I, is regardless, I would still, he's definitely a talented guy. And it was Sean's idea, which most of the Soup Dragons things came from. He was definitely the creative spur in the band. He was a driving force and really driven guy. And it was all the choir. That was all Sean's idea. I mean, I don't know how Junior became involved, but
that was like a late motif of the 90s, was having that kind of like reggae
sort of
bit in a
toast,
song.
Thing. And Junior's a great. I don't think I've seen Junior for the day we recorded, but I think we've done a couple of Top of the Pops, and Junior done Nameless and stuff like that, and a lovely guy, But I mean, he'd done that. My memory serves me right. I think Sean kind of scribbled out some notes and was like, I think he looked at them and just threw them on the floor
and improvised,
and just that. So that was all. That was just off the top of his head, and he just went for it, and it was just like, But I mean, I think it's like one of those things in the moment. You're just like, okay, this is okay, but apparently people for the record company were as people for record companies do, they come down and they check the progress of their money getting spent, and as I understand, they were instantly, just as soon as they heard it, they were like, this is a hit record.
100%.
This is a hit record. And again, because you're so involved in it, so a lot of that stuff just kind of goes over your head, thinking, I'm making a hit record, or I'm involved in making a hit record, you're just like, this is what we're doing the now. It'll be different, we'll be doing something different next week. So, but I mean, that record just caught fire, and it was just one of those,
Did you do Top of the Pops?
Yeah, done Top of the Pops, God knows how many times, with 2 bands.
That's brilliant. See the thing you said earlier about the record was ready when you joined the band. You learned the record. What did this particular song do to the sound of the overall record?
Oh, I mean, it completely changed the whole record. They brought the record back. The record was out, and they brought the record back in. And I'm quite sure there are people that have got the original version, I Love God. And that's when, like that whole element of the kind of indie dance crossover thing happened, and I mean, I know that Screamadelica gets a lot of praise and stuff like that, Love God was out before Screamadelica.
Honestly, just as you're saying that, it's making me think about how influential that song was on the rest of the 90s.
Yeah, and I always kind of, I never ever, press was never my forte or anything like that, so I wasn't really kind of involved in that, and I never used to get too uptight one way or t'other, I suppose the Soup Dragons was kind of Sean's baby, and but I think they were really cruel to the Soup Dragons. I think the press were really cruel to the Soup Dragons in the context of that record, and I think the Soup Dragons get accused of the bandwagon jumping when in actual fact, they
were ahead of the curve.
I'm not going to sit here and say, they were ahead of the game, and it was, but they certainly weren't bandwagon jumpers, it was out before Screamadelica,
There's an NME interview where the guy is ready to tear the Soup Dragons to shreds.
I mean,
and you can tell the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know whether that was, because a lot of these things, a lot of, like journalists and stuff, particularly music journalists and stuff, particularly in those days with the NME and the Melody Maker and Sounds, you had those three who were going strong. So it was really, it was really hard to get the front cover of an NME. It was really hard to get the front cover of Sounds, and we got them all. Mm-hmm. But it was almost like, it was almost because they had to, because they couldn't ignore it, because that record was so big that they couldn't ignore it, but they didn't like it. they didn't like it that it had to happen. Do you know what I mean? So, and a lot of those things as well are really. It's like anything. It's like building those relationships up. Where people are like, oh, he's a good guy. He's a mate of mine, and da 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 da. We were up here. We were in Scotland. We weren't in pally. We weren't down in London hanging out with the guys in the pubs and being their mates and we were in Scotland. So we weren't part. The Soup Dragons rather weren't part of the inner sanctum of the music industry, and that's what a lot of those relationships and stuff like that are built up.
Yeah, that's why I moved down there. Yeah, down to London.
So we weren't part of that. Mm-hmm. So we were cannon fodder. We were the guys that they could probably shoot down. Without really affecting their sort of social status within a certain group of people, or maybe that was coming from other bands that seen that success, didn't like it. And
there would obviously be a jealousy element.
Stoked the cannon
of the how popular.
And the journalists were the way they were the cynists, and we were the band that got it, But I mean, the Soup Dragons done amazingly well in America and stuff like that. Hugely well in America.
Toured with INXS as well, Paul.
Toured with INXS for 3 or 4 months and stuff like that, and even the shows we were doing ourselves are big shows, they were big shows, and the fact that I think there was a realisation there that the British press hate us, so why care?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you can go and be successful in other territories, then you will.
But obviously the British press at that time was so influential worldwide, that they could tar and feather you from afar, and I think that's what happened. I do think that the Soup Dragons are really, really cruelly dealt with. Yeah. With the press, and probably in particular Sean, because Sean was like any band, you think of Blur, you think of Damon, you think of Oasis, you think of Liam, you think of any band, you think of the main guy in the band, So I think that, I think that it was particularly cruel, and particularly cruel to Sean, because at the end of the day, it's Sean was a songwriter, it was, there was nobody else writing the songs, so it was really Sean's baby, and I think that they treated Sean really unfairly, I really do,
Before your time, the Soup Dragons came to an end. You did have that tour, 3 or 4 months with INXS. What was Michael Hutchins like to a band, an up-and-coming band?
Amazing guy. I mean, those guys are all really good. I mean, they're like very much rock stars, but great people, I mean, like really, really funny, kind, and those guys were Antipodean, they're like sort of the backwaters of nowhere, they've probably fought harder than most to get where they got to, because, particularly at that time, obviously there was no internet and there was none of that, so those guys had did the circuit Australia and blah blah blah, and they worked really hard to get where they went, where they got to. But they were really, really great. I mean, they were so kind. And we were only supposed to do, I think we were only supposed to do like 2 weeks of that tour. And yeah, and you know,
I loved you.
And we got on really well with them.
Yeah.
And they were just like, we want. And I think as well, you know, because obviously at the end of the day, it's a business, you know, and I think that they could see from the people that were buying tickets, there were people that were buying tickets to come to see the Soup Dragons as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know,
that's what you want when you've got a tour support and a headline band. If there's a cross pollination of the two, then
exactly, you know, and you can tell that in many ways. You know, we you know, just like the volume of merchandise that they're selling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we were shifting tons of merchandise.
Your good lady helped you. Was she not on?
Liz actually came out. Yeah, Liz actually came out to that, and it's such a bizarre story how that happened. Was. Because when they'd asked us, we just come off the stage, and I can remember Chris Murphy, who was the then INXS manager, walked across and was like, aye, and we were like, all right, okay. We went out of the dressing room, and the guy that managed Soup Dragons, a guy called Rick Rogers, Rick was like, oh, he was really excited and stuff like that, and basically this was Chris saying, we want the guys to do the rest of the tour. And remember, I mean, I don't know, you'll probably be able to tell me better now if they still do buy-ons.
Oh yeah,
tours, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, Living Colour, Iggy Pop, and probably another couple of bands were waiting to buy onto that tour.
Wow!
And they were like, "No, we want these guys. We just want these guys. It's a good, you know, it's a good travelling party kind of thing, you know." And I can remember Rick saying, "Oh, you know, they've asked us today," and it was like X amount of months, you know. And I was just instantly like, "I'm the way to do it." And it was, you know, they were like, what? And I was like, no, I'm not doing that, you know. I'm not doing that, you know. I'm not, you know, and this is genuinely true, you know. I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not phoning Liz tonight and saying, I'll see you in 3.5 months.
You were, what, early 20s, married?
I was 21 when I was married. Liz was 20. So I was like, I'm not doing that, you know. I'm simply not doing that, you know. So it was like, oh, right, okay, shit. So, and I think I said to Sean, well, you know, and I think Sean was like, what were you talking? I says, well, you enjoy that phone call with Catherine later on the night as well. And I think the penny dropped in real life. Yeah. And he was like, no, you're right. No, wait a minute here, you know. So obviously, I think Catherine was in a sort of slightly better position regards sort of our schedule and employment and stuff like that, where Catherine was quite free to sort of come out, whereas Liz wasn't. Liz worked with Phillips, and you know, so that was a wee bit more of a tricky situation. You know, Liz had a job. You know, she was working with, you know, just a normal 9-to-5 job, and you know, so holidays and all that sort of stuff come into the equation, and. I can't remember where we were. It was like the next day or something like that, and I can remember Rick Rogers coming downstairs in the hotel, and he was like, who is it Liz works with? Whereabouts is it Liz works again? And I was like, oh, she works with Phillips. Yeah, I know she works with Phillips, but whereabouts is it she works? And I was like, what do you mean? Whereabouts? I was like, it's in Airdrie. Oh, right, okay then. As it transpired, what had happened was Rick had phoned Jazz Summers, who was the guy who owned Big Life Records. He was married to Yaz and all that, you know.
Plastic Population, Yaz?
Yeah.
Aye. Wow.
So, yeah, The Only Way Is Up and all that, yeah. But Jazz and his name, I can't remember his name, but they managed Wham. They discovered Wham. So basically what happened was Rick had contacted Jazz and said, we've got a bit of an issue here. Right, what is it? This is the issue, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, you know, she's not got any holidays left, she can't take the time, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay then. So, this is crazy, right? We were signed to Polydor. Jazz Summers phoned up one of the board members they knew that sat on the Philips board, right? Philips owned Polydor Records.
Wow.
That was part of the Philips group, right? Dutch group based in Eindhoven. And basically said, this is the situation. This is a great opportunity for this band. We need to make this happen. The guy's like, cool, I'll make it happen. Where is it she works? He phones one of the board of directors, right, who there are only like 5 of, phones Lizzie's boss at
in
Airdrie and says, I want to speak to you. Tells him what the script is. This is the script. This is what's happening.
Wow.
I'm going to phone back, or somebody's going to phone back and speak to Liz. Right, okay, no bother. Boom, done. Guy goes out to the shop floor and he's like to Liz, oh, do you want a phone call? So Lizzie's thinking, because I'm away, you know, Lizzie's thinking something's happened to me, you know, and the guy's like, no, it's everyone's cool, it's all right, blah, blah, blah. So that was that. Liz went up and he's like, so Lizzie's sitting in her boss's seat in his office. We're just waiting on a phone call and it's for you. So Lizzie's like, what's going on here? So anyway, phone, and it's Jazz Summers. And he said,
in a building in Airdrie, while you're at your work.
While you're at work. Jazz Summers phones up Liz and says, okay, Liz, this is the deal. You're going out to America. You're going to be out for the tour. You're getting your full wage. There'll be nothing put against your record as in terms of like sort of time. Just tell Jerry, who was her boss, when you'll be back.
Wow. It's like music mafia, isn't it?
Yeah. And so Jazz is like, all right, okay, so we'll get the tickets sent to you, your flight tickets sent to you, when suits. But what Liz had they told me, either was Liz had a driving test, she hadn't told anybody, right? So they so she obviously told you, I've got this. So he's like, right, okay, we'll get you out then. So she flew into LA.
5 days previously in Airdrie.
Aye. So it's basically, right, okay, this is the deal, right, okay. So Liz says that she put the phone down and she was like, what the f*** just happened there, right? She's like, right, okay. And Jerry says to her, so when do you want to go? She went, dunno. And he went, when do you think you'll be back? She went, I don't know. He went, that's all right, just phone us and let us know. So Liz went away for like 4 months, full wage, full pay for her work, and then came out and done our merchandise for us.
Brilliant. And what an experience that must have been.
And like, we paid her as well. So double bubble. So that was that. You know, we just went out and we done.
Wow.
She went out and she done that whole tour, and she never done. Well, I suppose she helped in selling, but what she was really doing was she was doing all the stock counting. I mean, the guys that were doing, because it was the same guys that was doing INXS's merch that was doing our merch, but she was just there kind of helping them and sort of counting their stock in and out and all that kind of stuff. And they had just come off. I can't remember the guy's name, but they were English, a guy and a girl, and they had literally just come off a Depeche Mode tour.
Wow.
Who they were just saying they've never seen merchandise been sold like this ever.
Yeah.
Paul, I always remember being an avid reader of the Celtic View, you know, to the point that I entered all the competitions and all the rest of it. And I remember there was a feature, it was like a jukebox feature, and they asked Simon Donley about his favourite, and I was like, wait a minute, this guy's got taste. It was the Stone Roses, Oasis, Teenage Fanclub. You ended up becoming quite pally with him, didn't you?
Yeah, I was really pally with Simon. I still know Simon. You know, he's a cracking boy. You know what I mean? And again, Simon's one of the. You know, I think a lot of people put footballers into this with the you know, the kind of dumb footballer category. And I think that Simon was always one of those guys. He was a wee bit smarter than he's pretty well educated guy and all that, and I believe his mum is an art teacher.
Right, that doesn't surprise me about him.
No, so yeah, really really smart guy, Simon. I remember we actually, not long after I joined Teenage Fanclub, we were in Riverside Studios over in Busby, and at that time Simon stayed not too far away, and I says to him, if you want, just jumped out of the studio, and he came in the studio, and he came in, he was like, we were sitting recording, there's Simon, and so no, Simon's a lovely guy, really, really cracking guy, and big music fan.
Massive.
He knows his tunes.
He was always into that. Obviously he's younger than me, Simon. And he was into he was a huge Stone Roses fan. I mean, huge Stone Roses fan, and take it Oasis and that sort of almost kind of lad culture in terms of music, But yeah, big music fan, Simon.
Yeah, we met up
cracking
after,
guy.
We met up after lockdown. Finally, because we'd met just before lockdown at King Tut's, and just became kind of. I mean, obviously I knew who he was, Simon Donley, but we were talking mostly about music.
Yeah, he's a huge music fan. Simon.
And then
really
we met up afterwards,
guy.
and he told me the weekend that Celtic played Sporting Lisbon in that ill-fated friendly that had the return match in Lisbon that nobody went to.
Yeah,
there was Paul interviewed George Cadetti, and he told about the story about those two games. He was entitled to £400,000 from Celtic when he'd been promised it as part of the deal. He never got it. Yeah, he never got it, and it was mental because it was like, why would there be an away game in Lisbon? I know obviously there's Celtic connection to Lisbon, but to expect there to be a huge travelling support of Celtic fans to go for a friendly to Lisbon, and then also the home crowd to fill the stadium as well. There was only about, did he not say there was like 3,000 people there or something like that?
Yeah, it was it was sabotaged almost in seconds, But
the home game, Simon Donley scored against Sporting Lisbon, then B1'd it straight to Ballach to go and see Oasis at Loch Lomond, and then the next day did the full day.
I think I got Simon tickets for that.
Did you?
Brilliant.
I was at that gig.
Were you there as well?
Yeah, I was at that.
Oh man,
I remember
so regretting not
going.
going.
I remember me and Liz went up. I actually met Alex McLeish. And he's a lovely big guy. I can remember sitting chatting away to him, and again, sort of, kind of was into his music and stuff like that, you know. I
remember that weekend, scoring for Celtic and then going to see Oasis.
Because I think Oasis actually asked us to play it, had asked Teenage Fanclub to play it.
You said no?
No, I think we were washing our hair that night. But
because they had a decent. I mean, Teenage Fanclub on that bill would have absolutely made sense because it was like Manic Street Preachers, Black, great cast.
Yeah, I remember Cast playing it. That's right. I remember. I think that's where I first met like Keith and stuff like that. To Cast.
Yeah.
You know,
but Sid was playing on Saturday in that Old Trafford game. He scored his penalty.
Oh, did he?
He took his penalty well.
Yeah,
he scored twice at Old Trafford because he played in Mark Hughes' testimonial.
That's right. So he did. He scored in that as well.
Was he the oldest on the park?
May
well. Doing well for his age.
No, I don't think he was because there was I think it was Raymond van der Gouw, the Man United keeper. He's
right, of course.
Either late 50s or early 60s. So he was still playing.
Fair play.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about there is that crossover. We're talking about Simon Donley. That leads us on to Oasis. But I want to stick to Celtic for the moment because I love a Celtic tune. And I love the fact that we've got this great songbook, Paul, and every so often a new song enters the lexicon of Celtic songs. And a while back, you let me hear a song that you had written about the one and only Jimmy Johnstone.
Jimmy Johnstone, that's right.
Talk to us about the song and who appears on it as well, because this is basically unheard, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think... it's certainly never been... It never was released or anything like that. I just... and it was through a good friend of mine's, and he was like, it'd be great to write a song about Jimmy, and so it was just one of those things that was kind of in my head, and I'd come up with this. I think I was making a cup of tea or something like that, and I'd come up with this. Just this wee melody appeared out as they do, and I was like, that's quite good. And then I went away and figured out the chords, and then just sort of looked to sort of kind of read about a bit about Jimmy and stuff like that. And Jimmy is from View Park, which is like 3 miles, or 2.5 miles from Bellshill, you know. And obviously I'm a big Celtic fan, and you know, I caught Jimmy Johnstone at the tail end of his career and stuff like that. So it wasn't a hard write, but I wrote the song in like sort of, you know, I wrote the song in like 10 minutes. And it was just one of those ones, you know, just read a bit about him, and then just, you know, and it's like one of the, you know, some songs you just get a first line and off you go, and it just kind of appears on the page before you and stuff like that. And at that time I was working in a recording studio, so I had quite a good facility there. And so I was like, I really want to get this done, you know, I really want to get this done. And I was like, well, certainly I'm not singing it, I'm not the voice for it, or, and I was like, you know, and I need proper players. So I kind of reached out to a few people. I played drums on it. So I reached out to Jim McCulloch, who played with the Soup Dragons, again a Celtic fan. So Jim was like, yeah, no problem, that'd be cool. And I asked, who else did I ask? I asked Lewis Gordon, who was the bass player with, or still is, I believe, is the bass player with Deacon Blue. If he would do it. I get in contact with John McCusker, who's just an absolutely phenomenal musician. I don't know if you know John.
I know the name.
Yeah. So John's played with Bob Dylan. He's played with Dire Straits, Martin Offler. He's played with like just a multitude of people. Hugely talented guy. And I'd asked John if he would sort of play fiddle, and I was like, I'd really like whistles on it. He was like, oh, I play whistles as well, you know. And I was like, right, amazing. So I'd got everybody. I'd got, obviously had the studio time and stuff like that, but I was like, I need to get somebody to sing this. I need to get somebody to sing it kind of how I can hear it. And I was like, Ken McCluskey, it has to be Ken. If it's no Ken, it's no happening. So I'd contacted Ken, who again, I've known Ken for a long, long time. Ken's salt of the earth, you know. Again, a huge Celtic fan. And I just explained what we were doing, you know, and he was like, right, okay, no problem, I'll be up for that. So I was like, right, okay. So just went in about, you know, just played the very badly, played the sort of track to the guys, and obviously, you know, Jim just picked it up, you know, there's not a lot in it, and Lewis just sort of followed suit. So we got the kind of basics of the track down, and then once we'd done that, John just come in, and I literally whistled the part to John once, and he's like, okay. So he went in and it was like, right, okay, where did he write? This is where these kind of go, John, you know. But if you just want to play, so I think he just played the entirety of the whole tune. And we were like, right, okay, so we'll just cherry pick in the edits. So that was what John done. Put the fiddle on it, then put whistles on it. And then, so once we had the tracks sort of there and built the track up and stuff like that, that's when I get Ken in, let him hear the track, and he's like, this is sounding really good. Told him the melody. He's like, right, okay, cool. There's the words. He's like, right, cool. Off we go, and and that was it, you know. And that was really it, you know. Nothing sort of ever really kind of came of it, or, you know, I've let a few people hear it, and it's really one of those songs that's bizarre. It's one of those songs that people hear and they go, that is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And it's like, you know, and it's kind of hard to sort of, you know, to sort of see that as something that you've written. You know, it's hard to blow smoke. You know, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, it's just a song.
But it already sounds like something that's always been there.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's got great sentiment and stuff like that, you know, and lyrically it came for a really kind of heartfelt place, you know, and like sort of how, you know, as I can remember, Jimmy Johnstone, because I know Jimmy's daughter really well, Eileen, you know, and I know Eileen really well, and I sent Eileen the song, and she was in tears. Do you know what I mean? And she was just like, "This is absolutely amazing," you know. But still, you know, but nothing. It's just one of those songs that I've got, and every now and again I'll sort of. It's probably out of all the things that I've ever recorded, it's probably the thing that I would say I probably listen to more than anything that I've ever recorded. Do you know what I mean?
That's incredible.
Because it's just got a great. There's just something about it, you know. Not because I wrote it, you know, nothing to do with that at all. And no to hear myself playing drums badly. You know, the thing I love about it is what John McCusker done with it. Mm-hmm. That's what I really like about it. You know, it's really enchanting. You know, there's that, because it's like a picture. You know, it's like John sort of, you know, the kind of landscape was there, and John just came in and highlighted all the, and I was like, that's what I want. You know, like the whistle parts and all that were totally John. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not going to take credit for every note that was played in the record and stuff like that. The kind of initial melody and stuff like that, the hook, was something that I'd come up with. But all the fillers were, and you're just like...
Tell us the name of it, Paul. I don't know.
It's called Hold Your Head Up High.
Hold Your Head Up High. I mean, listen...
In brackets, Jimmy Johnstone.
We had a similar conversation about 5 or 6 years ago with Gary John Kane, who told us they had written a song, him and JJ Gilmour, years before.
Yeah.
And that got the kind of wheels running in motion. Yeah. And we eventually, as Acsom, released that song, done the promo video.
Right.
So you've got me thinking here, Paul, there could be a collaboration
with
here.
The Wakes.
Yeah, with the Wakes. It was the Wakes re-recorded it.
Right.
But that is ready to go. That song
well,
is
that is a ready to go tune, you know. And there's a couple of versions of it. There's 2 different versions on it. There's one with I believe Jimmy Johnstone Boys, the Jimmy Johnstone Boys Club.
Yes, yeah.
Kids on it.
You've got a B-side there, haven't you, already?
And there's the A-side, which is just
brilliant
without the kids in it.
This is great, Paul. Hopefully we can work on something in relation to that.
Yeah.
But it takes me back to what you were saying there about the Primary 5 and how, because you had been in the industry, if you want to call it that, for so long, you were able to say, right, not only can I write songs, record songs, I can release them because I know I've got the know-how.
Yeah.
And you did that through BBE Management.
Well, I've done that through BBE Music,
right.
Which was just, and I was like, right, well, I need to call it something, you know, and obviously I'm from Bellsill and I play drums, Bell.
Did they used to call it the Bellsill Beat?
Well, they did. The BBC actually done a programme and they called it Bellsill Beat. So I just thought that's
brilliant.
Well, you know, I play drums and I'm from Bellsill, so I've got every right to use those 2 words and put them together. So that just so happened to be, you know, what I called it. I called it BBE Music, and that's what I put the first Primary 5 record out on.
So BBE Management, when I'm looking at that, the music industry must be a difficult and sometimes scary one for a young musician to come into. Personally, if I'm going into an industry and it's somebody who's been through all that, the trials, the tribulations, releasing records, touring with bands, and they're going to advise me.
Yeah.
Is that where you're coming from with this? Is that the angle you're coming from?
It is the angle that I'm coming from, you know, and you know, and I've got quite a deep sort of ethos as to what's behind that as well. You know, it's, you know, things like, you know, I'm a great believer, managers, record labels, all the periphery. The core thing, which is music, which is a band, which is creatives. Mm-hmm. They just want to create. They just want to be. They just want the springboard. They just want to be like, oh, this is amazing, you know. Or you're going out the studio, that's amazing, you know. Or you're going on tour, oh, that's amazing. That's what they just want to think of those things. That's what they want to do. And I'm saying that with the knowledge and experience, because I've done exactly the same thing. And what happens is you take your eye off the ball at other things. which is the only reason that touring's happening, that you're making records and etc., is because what's at the core is really good. It's sellable, and that's why all these people, the peripheral dancers, round about it, are all attracted to it, because it's a sellable asset. So if you take it looking at it like that, a lot of young, me being one of them at the time, you take your eye off that ball because you're only interested in making the records, going on tour, having good fun, blah, all that thing. You're not looking at, so what's the record sales? What's the
plan?
What's the plan?
2-year plan?
Where's the 2-year plan? Yeah. Where's the money coming through? See when they sell the t-shirts, where does that money go to? How does that split? What pot does that go into? No. A lot of people don't know about it, and a lot of people have no interest in it. I'm a strong believer, and a manager or whoever, round about a musician that's got something great at the core of it should never be making more money than them. They should only be making money if the musician's making money.
Yeah.
They should never be making more than them, ever. You know what I mean? So those things, there's a lot of people there that will take advantage in any way, shape or form, be it in the nicest possible way. We'll give you supports. We'll let you support us. But they're only letting them support them because it benefits them. It's not because it's benefiting them. It's they're getting tarred and feathered, they're getting used, but they're no, it's like, so my whole thing with Belby is, I've got the experience of being in bands and sort of kind of knowing how the industry to a certain degree works because it's so changed. So I'm still learning every day. But the thing that you can do is you can try and steer people, to make the right judgments without making them in an almost desperate attempt to get wherever they want to go quicker.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, totally.
So don't cut corners, don't do that just because it's like somebody's offered you, you know what I mean? Why are they offering you? So it's things like that that's what I want to do.
As I've been doing research into the history of the Tuts archive and everything else, and I've seen so many bands that have come up on that and I remember them. I remember them from like 20 years ago, and it's just probably been a case, in fact I know for a fact that it's a case with one band in particular, that management, decision making, things just go wrong and then lead you off piste. And if you go off piste as a band, it's very hard to get back on track. Because people forget very quickly, and if you've not built up, if you've not got that goodwill in the bank through an album or whatever, if there's nothing tangible there, then bands just disappear and people move on to the next one.
Well, that's what happens because it's a, there is bands that have got true substance, and there'll always be, if there's any sort of measure of success, I mean, I wouldn't say that the Fanclub were a hugely successful band. The Fanclub are probably more revered by other musicians. Do you know what I mean? They've got the hardcore of people that have followed them for day dot, and then but there's loads. I mean, and I know this just from being in the band. There's loads of, and I hate this term, but I'm going to use it. They're kind of band. They're really admired by, like I know that Noel and Liam are huge fans of the band and the Fanclub, and loads. I mean, I remember the first Tea in the Park that we did when it was at Strathclyde Park. I remember Neil Finn.
Credit House.
Been like, I cannot believe that I'm meeting Teenage Fanclub.
Brilliant.
I mean, he was blown away, and he was like hanging about with us. He was like, it was just like kind of walking about with us and all that. And he's such a lovely, lovely guy, you know. But you just get these people that are just like, and you're like, really?
No, but I think the true mark of a band, like especially Teenage Fanclub, is that you can go and play to a certain size of audience pretty much anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I mean, they do it.
And not many bands can do that.
And they still do it consistently. And when they still go on tour, they still go and they still sell them out.
Yeah.
They've got a tribe, haven't they?
They've got people that are just like that. That's part of the fabric of their life, you know, be it for whatever reason, you know.
I mean, I saw them last month supporting Death Cab.
I was at that show.
And your man Ben was just like, it's such an honour for us to have Teenage Fanclub open for us tonight. And
huge respect.
I mean, it was the same when they supported Foo Fighters at Main Road.
Yeah.
And Dave Grohl was just like, this is just one of the best bands in the world, you know.
That's amazing. Again, Kurt Cobain, we mentioned it earlier. Kurt Cobain was a fan of the band.
Kurt was a massive fan, you know, and but
so how did the band end up on Creation then? Like, what was the?
I've no idea. I wasn't there at the time.
Oh, right.
See, you obviously have BBE Management, and you go into Creation Records, and the management of that record company as well. Alan McGee managed My Bloody Valentine and Jesus and Mary Chain and all that kind of stuff. I'm thinking it's going to be a little less rock and roll.
It would be very, very hard to be more rock and roll than Creation was at that time, you know. Admittedly, I only think that I was in Creation offices a couple of times. And even then, I didn't, you know, I was a non-drinker. I think there was maybe once that I was like, right, okay, I'm going up the road. I'm basically back to Glasgow. And maybe the rest of the guys, or maybe a couple of the guys decided, well, we'll just hang it here for a wee while, you know. But it was a kind of wild and crazy place, you know. But an amazing, you know, amazing story how Alan pulled all that together. And you know, there was a long period of time that they were skint, you know. I mean, Stony broke, but they just kept going, you know. They were just like, no. You know, and you've got to admire that, you know. Alan's a brilliant. He's brilliant, Alan, you know.
Going back to something you said earlier, you know, selling the white goods to record an album. Someone at Creation remortgaged their house at one point.
I think it was Dick Green.
To make sure. And then, obviously, you then get a year where it's bandwagon-esque, Loveless, Screamadelica, all in the same year.
Yeah.
You join the band, and obviously there's a crossover with a band that became the biggest band in the world. With Oasis, and you're in the same recording studio. Because the time that I realised, it was probably my brother that pointed it out, in the Jim Furmanowski book, the only other band in that Oasis book that appears is Teenage Fanclub.
Yeah,
because you're in the same studio.
Yeah, it was their studios. Yeah, it was their studios in Hampstead. That was a good time. Yeah, we were in there. I think I can't remember if we'd done. I can't remember what we actually done in Air Studios, but we're certainly there. And it was Songs for Northern Britain that we were recording, so that would have been, What's the Story? Would have been the Oasis record. And we think we were sort of having lunch or something like that, and we seen Liam passing. Him and Terry, who was Liam's security guy at the time. He was a cracking big guy who we got to sort of know just by playing festivals and stuff like that. So they weren't. I think they were in studio. I think Liam, and it was only Liam that was in. They were in Studio 1, and we were upstairs. We were mixing. We were actually mixing. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right to tell that a story about. I can't remember which game it was on. I was just sitting in the wee sort of the wee ante room, you know, sort of, and the guys were in the control room and stuff like that, and the phone went, and I'm like, hello, and it was an unmistakably Liam Gallagher, you know, and he's like, you all right, mate? And I was like, yeah, who's this? It's Paul. All right, Paul. Aye, how you doing, mate? Aye, good. And then he he's the total wind-up, you know. Really funny guy, you know, lovely guy, Liam. He's like, oh, is Rod Stewart there? And I was like, no. He's like, is Jim Kerr up there? And obviously he's at the wind-up, and I was just like, I'm just laughing. Anyway, he's like, all right, blah, 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 catch you later. Within a minute, I can see right through the control room, and I sees the door opening, and there in walks Liam, you know, with a bottle of Stolly and vodka, right? So I went out and all that, and I was like, right, I need to witness this shit, you know. So he's like, all right, guys, and all that. So they're all just like, you know, typical Normans. Oh, how you doing, Liam? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, well, what he's up to, you know, we're mixing. All right, okay, can I hear a couple of tunes? Here's a couple of tunes, you know, and, you know, it was like, right, okay, you know, blah, 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 and sitting with him, and he's like, you know, you guys are the second best band in the world, right? So we were all just laughing, you know, like, right, whatever, obviously yous are the first, you know. So that was that, you know, and he was like, you know, oh, we're mixing downstairs, and all right, good. He's like, just want to come down and hear some. So we're like, yeah. So we were like, right, okay. So we goes down, and he should have, and I kid you not, there was a PA in the control room. Mm-hmm. They had a full PA in the control room, and we were just like looking at it, you know. And so it's like, we were just like, wow. So anyway, Owen Morris was there, you know, and so we goes in and all that, and so, oh, how you doing, Owen, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of horse, you know, there's a kind of, the control, the desks here, and there's a kind of, almost like kind of horseshoe type resin back bit, and that's all the outboard gear and all that. So me and Jerry, very, very wisely, we decided, right, well, we're going to camp at the back of the studio. So we went and sat on these sofas that are kind of, but Norman and Raymond sat on stools that was at the kind of top of this, the control room, and then it was like kind of lowered floor, control room floor desk, Owen Morris. And Liam's like, play, you know, so Liam's sort of thinking his orders out to Owen, and Owen's playing the tracks and all that. And Liam is literally singing the words and continued to play the whole album in performance mode.
Wow.
Like singing all the songs, right? And he says, but the one that always sticks in my mind was he says to Owen Morris, he says, play that tune, the one our kid sings on. And Owen's like, oh, but he's like, it's the best description of a piece of music that I've ever heard, right? He went, play the song that our kid sings on, the one that sounds like f***ing Annika Rice and Benidorm, man. What the f***'s that?
Brilliant.
Annika Rice and Benidorm.
Sure, Owen Morris got it from that.
What does that mean? And then continued to play the song. Do you know what I mean? Whatever one it is that no.
Don't look back.
Probably. And that was that, and we just...
Wait, I need to find that. He's talking about a theme tune, probably, to a TV show.
He says it sounds like Annika Rice and Benidorm.
Aye, but it must be... like
it's like Travel Hunt or something.
Aye.
You know, it was some TV programme. And we were just like, this is awesome.
Because no ripped off stuff on it.
Aye, I mean, yeah, of course he did. You know, everybody does.
You wouldn't think twice about ripping off a TV show.
But it was just like, you know, like just madness that night. I mean, the music was so loud. I mean, it was so loud. It was just to the point of unbearably loud.
When he played Tuts to do that video shoot a few years ago, he had 3 monitors in the middle of the stage. And he was still telling them to turn it up. And it must have been blaring.
I mean, it was just like that. And for that particular night anyway, you know, it was like, and Jill was there that night, you know, because we'd met Jill previously to that, and there was other guys in the sort of wee back room we never really seen who it was, but I don't know who was in there. But I think Nick Bryan was actually in there, but nobody else came out. But I can remember speaking to Jill about that night, and she was saying that is one of the wildest nights that she's ever experienced, ever. She says it was off its head.
I'm so glad that there's pictures of that.
It was completely and utterly off its head, man.
Yeah.
Because we ended up, our hearing was shot, so the mixing for us was done for the evening. You know, and we were like, you know, but it was so intense.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got this.
It was a full record.
It's a full record, and he's literally nose to nose with Norman. It's like singing the songs. You know what I mean? It was intense, you know. Me and Jerry sitting at the back like, you know, go. But it was.
You picked the best seats.
Me and Jerry definitely got that one right. You know, we definitely called that. We called that right. You know, so that was an interesting evening. And then our ears were done. And we left and we went back to wherever we were staying. And
brilliant.
You know,
the other thing I was going to ask, we started off talking about the Barrowlands. We've got JP, who's known for King Tut's.
Sure.
With regards to Bellbeat, is there somewhere in Bellshill that you think could become a go-to venue?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's. You know, I'm always looking at sort of those avenues as, you know, obviously what everybody has to do is everybody has to earn a living. Do you know what I mean? And I'm no different for that. So I'm just coming up with different ideas as to how things, you know, and I've thought about bringing good music back to Bellshill, you know, because it was, you know, the Hartnett Hotel was a brilliant place, you know, and I mean, God, Soup Dragons played there, you know, the Pastels played there, Thin Lizzy played there, Frankie Miller, you know, there's loads of the, you know, not that I'm going to bring any of those back, but, you know, it's just somewhere that's got, that'll sort of cater for good music, you know, not cover bands, not sort of, you know, and no disrespect, you know, not we guys playing Arctic Monkeys covers and stuff like that, you know, proper sort of, you know, my outlook on that is to bring sort of, be it in a solo context, you know what I mean, but bringing sort of name people that will be known to people, you know. I've got the venue and all that sorted out. I'm not really sort of, you know, I'm not going to divulge where it is and stuff like that.
But it sounds similar to like what that guy Douglas is doing with Frets and Straven. You heard of that?
Yeah, well, it's to say that, I mean, Frets is, I mean, the place that Douglas has got at Frets, and Frets is great. It's quite a big room.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a big room. I'm not thinking that large. I'm only thinking maybe 110, 120 cap.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But in a good room, the venue that I've got is really nice, really close to like the railway station and stuff like that. That's accessible to people. You know, it's got everything that I sort of need. It's, you know, there's sort of wheelchair accessibility, all that kind of stuff, all those things that I've thought about. It's a good pub. The people that run it are good people. So, and I'm just thinking, yeah, I want to do something in Bellshill that, because it's got such a great musical sort of history.
100%.
And I'm not saying it's just going to be, Bellshill bands, you know, or Bellshill bands of old, but it's going to be a sort of, you know, it's just going to be people, artists and musicians that people could or probably would know their names and stuff like that, you know, and it's quite an intimate size and stuff like that, where it will be, you know, those things are, when they're small and intimate, and, you know, there's something sort of special. I think there's something special about those
100%,
those gigs, especially, you know, if they're done properly, you know, and it's you know, and I've got enough experience where I know how to put a gig on properly and sort of accommodate everything that needs to be accommodated and stuff like that, you know. So that's definitely happening.
That's the type of thing where you get one or two really good ones that just sort of like knocks into the next.
And that's exactly what I'm you know, and I've spoken to a few people that are up for doing it. So I think that's going to be really exciting, you know, and I'm hoping to have that done fairly soon, you know.
Cool.
You know.
What we'll do, Paul, is share all your links underneath this video so people can visit Bellbeat, see what's happening, and obviously you can keep them updated on your Facebook page as well. It's been an absolute pleasure for JP and I, being Celtic heads and music heads. Thanks once again for joining us on the Celtic State of Mind.
Absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much.
Really great talking to you.
Brilliant. No, not at all.
Thanks for joining us again on This Is Acsom, another brilliant episode with Paul Quinn. Join us next Friday for This Is a Celtic State of Mind.